This video provides information on how to administer the TCEO Numeracy and Literacy Test. It's designed for people who are new to the project, but also as a refresher for those who are more familiar with the testing. The aim of the project in Year 2 is slightly different to what we're trying to achieve in Prep and Year 1. Some things remain the same, the desire to create meaningful data, and helping teachers customise and differentiate for the needs of their students as individuals, they remain the same. However, with the Year 2 test, we start to take more of a diagnostic approach. We really see it as an opportunity to uncover any misunderstandings and help move children on as individuals. It enables us to determine the interventions that are needed. Another aspect of this test is that it provides a link to NAPLAN in Year 3. So whilst the test is similar to the Prep and the Year 1 testing that we already do, it does change format somewhat. The focus becomes more on literacy, for example, rather than oral language, and it provides a link from the Prep and Year 1 screening to NAPLAN in Year 3. Our main aim always, this is our underlying goal, is to improve services in order to benefit the children. So these are the questions that we will be answering during the course of this video. We'll be looking at or discussing what skills are tested, when we should use a test, who will administer the test, how long will it take, and we'll also have a quick look at how we go about scoring it and the results and the feedback process. So firstly, what skills are tested? Well, with numeracy, every strand is represented on the test, and it's been written in such a way that it represents the achievement standard for Year 2. So if you have a look at the achievement standard for Year 2, each element that is mentioned has a test question that is relevant to that. Some strands are given more focus than others. For example, number, you'll find there's lots of place value questions on the paper, and that's purely because we really do want to capture any misunderstandings. Now is a perfect time to enact any interventions that are required for our students. With the literacy test, it doesn't quite reflect the achievement standard for Year 2 because there's many elements and this testing process really doesn't suit that. So whilst there are a number of strands tested in the literacy paper, it doesn't completely fulfil the Year 2 achievement standard as it does for numeracy. It's important to note too that no longer is the focus on oral language. However, the speech pathologists were involved in framing a number of the questions, and that's in order to provide that link from the Prep and the Year 1 testing. Each of the questions are linked to the Australian curriculum. So this here is an example of the feedback, the data that you will receive, and you can see along the bottom here we have each of the different questions, a description of what they're trying to achieve when that question was asked, and the link to the Australian curriculum. So when should it be used? Well, we like to do the pre-test nice and early. So in Term 1, Week 3 would be the preferred option for Year 2s. And the post-test occurs in Term 3. As far as who should administer the test, well, the classroom teacher is the perfect person. However, we advise that there is a second person in the room. Having 28 students using a device such as a laptop, being able to log in and answer 25 questions is a challenge, particularly at the start of Year 2. So if there could be an assistant of some form, maybe the curriculum developer, learning enrichment teacher, at least one other assistant would be beneficial to the testing process. So how does it begin? Well, a link will be sent to you via email. So you'll get an email from myself, it'll be ksargent@, and this link, this URL, links to a Google form. There's a separate one for numeracy and literacy. So there's two separate forms. Now, the next part of the process is very important. It's important that on the day of the testing, the classroom teacher does a bulk email to the group of students in their class and they share that URL. It's important that this does not occur early, as a child could log on to their email at home and they could answer the questions in the form and submit from home, in which case it would render their test irrelevant. So it's important that the sharing of that URL occurs on the day of the testing. The students log in as themselves. So they get a device, they log in as themselves, open up their email and click on that link. It's the same link for every child. They complete the Google form and press submit. Each form can only be submitted once per student. Their email address is automatically collected once the form is submitted. So what will you need to administer the test? Well, it's useful to have a device for yourself as the classroom teacher. It's advised that you project what you see on your device up onto a larger screen format. So it might be a digital projector or it might be a large LED panel on the wall, but you can project up what you're seeing on your laptop so the entire class can see and be led by what you're doing. Each child will then need some form of device to log into. iPads, whilst they do work, we have found an issue with scrolling and it changing the choice of bubble. So whilst the child's not asked to do any typing at all, they are being asked to select a bubble, and it's much easier on a laptop. So each child will need a laptop, and you yourself as a classroom teacher will need a laptop. There is no printed materials for this test paper at all. How to administer? Well, this bit's really important. For the test to be a valid source of data, it's really, really important that we are consistent in the implementation of the test. The test is not a test of reading, and that's really important. We're not testing reading. So that we ask that teachers read the questions that are in bold as they appear, and then there may be parts that are in Beginners Queensland font. So these two elements can be read. We ask that you do not provide any interpretation or clarification of the questions. Please read them verbatim, and you may repeat it. So you may read the question more than once, but do not read the options at the bubble. That we ask that the children choose this down here, the bottom part, on their own, and this part does not get read by the classroom teacher. In bold and in Queensland font is to be read only. The time allocation is dependent on the efficiency of the technology being used. And with Year 2s early on in the year, it may be challenging to get all 25 students to log on successfully and submit the form. We have had schools who have been implementing this test for 3 years now, and they do successfully get their students to submit this online. It can be done. It's just that initially when the children are young, it can be a little bit challenging. There are 2 separate test papers of 25 questions each. One is for numeracy and one is for literacy. You can do both on the one day or you can separate them if you like. They are submitted as separate forms. They have separate URLs. So how is it scored? Well, the questions are marked with a tick if they are correct, and if they are incorrect, then whatever bubble that they chose, whatever word it had there or option that it had, it might be a number or a whole sentence, that then gets printed and displayed. Why we do that is because it enables us to diagnose any misunderstandings. So quite deliberately, when the test is designed, it is designed to try and capture common misunderstandings that children have. So it's either correct or the incorrect response is chosen, and it's always worthwhile looking at patterns in that incorrect response. Results and feedback. Once analysis of the results is complete, Feedback meetings will be scheduled at a time that is negotiated between myself, Kate Sargent, and the school's speech pathologist and the school itself. The analysis will include percentiles. That essentially ranks each child in order to do comparisons. We'll look at some whole class trends by question. We'll also look at a comparison between the pre and the post test, in particular looking at the value addedness. And we'll also look at each child as an individual and how they have performed on the test. You will gain access to the early years project site as a way of getting the data out to you. So you'll be provided with access to this website, which has a variety of information contained upon it, but the school data will be the first starting point. This is an example of what the data looks like. I've got two different graphs there, but this top one here represents each child. So each dot represents a student in the class. So we will have discussions about each of the children in your class as individuals, have a look at their performance and how they've gone, but we'll also have a look at, as a class, the performance. This graph at the bottom here is a graphical representation showing the pre-test data. So this one here, if you have a quick look, 29% of the students in the class had success at this question in the pre-test, and then the red is representative of the post-test result. So we'll have a look at that value addedness. It's an opportunity to celebrate the success. There are limitations with our test. It's important to note that it does give valuable information regarding academic learning. So it can't measure things like creativity, social skills, excellence in physical performance, or other attributes that our children have that are highly desired. The other limitation is that it gives you two single scores, one for numeracy and one for literacy. Now, whilst it does provide information regarding interventions or whether or not students access learning enrichment, it is not desirable to make those decisions upon one single score. It's still necessary to have multiple sources of information when making decisions that have a major impact on a child. So whilst it does have its limitations, it will help inform your teaching. It will give you valuable information regarding a child's academic learning. It'll enable you to celebrate some of the successes and maybe also ponder some of the not so successful. If you have any further questions, please email me on ksargent@ryan.catholic.edu.au.